Hello and welcome to National Park Wild. I'm Eric, and those of you watching have more than likely heard of Grand Canyon National Park. It is possibly the most famous natural landmark in the United States, and it gets over 5 million visitors a year, and it's easy to see why. How can one resist a national park with massive canyons, with gorgeous rivers running through them, unique rock formations, shockingly diverse wildlife, especially for a desert park, and just all around, a diverse experience with several different viewpoints, showing you a different formation after another, showing some of the greatest work nature's ever carved out. Well, it seems like a lot of people can resist that, because I'm not describing Grand Canyon National Park right now. I'm describing Big Bend National Park in Texas. This national park is, in my opinion, even better than the Grand Canyon. Now obviously there is no objective, this is a better rock than that one. But my experience at Big Bend was even more mind-blowing, and that might be because of how underrated it is. This is the epitome of underrated national parks. It's very remote, naturally being hard to get to means not many people will go, and as a result, it is one of the least visited national parks in the entire country. That said, it is definitely worth visiting, more than nearly every other park I've been to based on my experience. What makes Big Bend National Park so special though? Well, let's think about the things that make national parks special in general. The first thing that comes to mind for me is landscapes. Beautiful mountains, deserts, forests, beaches. These are the sorts of things people most point to when they say, that's why I want to go to a national park, or that's what stuck with me. And Big Bend has some of the most impressive landscapes of any national park in my opinion. Thinking about the desert national parks, compared to places like Canyonlands, or Arches, or Grand Canyon, or Zion, there are some similarities, but it's definitely not the same as the orange rocks of the Utah and Arizona national parks. Instead, I generally find the mountains here to be a bit more unique as far as desert mountains go. They're a deeper red color, and some of them seem a bit more smoothly sculpted, while others are still super jagged and sharp, and they kind of look like the kinds of mountains you would see in Alaska. That said, they still have the desert appearance to them. And there are so many great ways to experience these mountains. The best way is going into them. This range is specifically called the Chisos Mountains, and the Chisos Mountains offers plenty of gorgeous places to enjoy their scenery on many trails including Lost Mine, South Rim, and Emery Peak. More on the trails a little later. One thing I love about Big Bend is that these mountains are not the only thing in the park. This is not Chisos Mountains National Park. After all, it is Big Bend, and Big Bend refers to the Rio Grande. This river is certainly a beauty, and there are two canyons along it. You can see Boquillas Canyon, which has a ground full of rocks and some beautiful blue water, and Santa Elena Canyon, which has much grander canyon walls and a more narrow pathway between it. Being able to experience two canyons in one park is certainly a special experience. And beyond these major sites, there is so much more to see along the Ross Maxwell Scenic Drive. Just like with many of the best national parks, you can stop in a variety of places and enjoy unique features such as the volcanically formed Tuff Canyon or two rocky spires in Mule Ears. There is so much to see in this park, and sight is a big part of what makes national parks a true beauty for many people. However, it's not just about things to see, it's also things to do. And there are certainly many things to do in Big Bend National Park. Going back to the hiking, I'm going to go into personal thoughts for this portion. I have done very few of the hikes in this park, because there are several. Dozens upon dozens, maybe hundreds of hikes you can enjoy, and I've only scratched the surface and would love to experience more. I've done small hikes in the Boquillas Canyon and Santa Elena Canyon areas, but the one I enjoyed the most was Lost Mine. Lost Mine Trail in the Chisos Mountains is one of my favorite trails in any national park. I would take it over Delicate Arch, Bright Angel, and Angel's Landing. And that's a very high bar. But my experience was quite hard to beat. What I did was enter the park well before sunrise, and begin the trail pretty much at the crack of dawn. Going up, the sunlight that was starting to peek through illuminated the beautiful mountains and allowed me to experience gorgeous scenery. And going past the unique plant life of this area was a very fun way to enjoy this trail, even when there wasn't that much to look at because it was still dark. Nearing the end of the trail, the sun emerged, and looking around the flatter desert landscapes, but still seeing some mountainous areas and certain areas in the distance, it's beautiful to see such a variety of areas and landscapes just from this one viewpoint. And we're not even at the end of the trail yet. As we reach the end of the trail, sunrise colors begin to form around the Chisos Mountains. Some rocks were glowing a bright vivid orange, others did not have color hitting them but had beautiful pink backdrops behind them. It was simply an unbeatable view. And at the very top of the trail, I looked down to an area I had just been in, and there was a black bear that had not been there before. Getting to see a black bear and eventually watch it walk over further past the trail to the point where it was now in front of the mountains, providing an even better view. This was the perfect mix of a wildlife experience and a beautiful landscape, and it is one of my favorite memories I have in any national park. And while the chances of a black bear on Lost Mine Trail in the sunrise are not necessarily super high, the chance of a wonderful experience in Big Bend National Park like this is certainly very high. After all, a black bear was certainly not the only wildlife I experienced while in the park. Given that I began my day before sunrise, it's not surprising that while driving into the park, I saw several mule deer and rabbits. Mule deer for me, and deer in general, are not a super common sight at home, so compared to the majority of the US population, I find them to be a very interesting wildlife sighting, and even if you don't, it's still nice to see a ton of them as you're entering the park. Later in the day, I saw one coyote along the road, and most fun for me, a great abundance of birds. Bird watching is certainly fun, and my home state is Florida, so Everglades National Park and the nearby areas are full of great bird watching, but the birds here are something different, and I like the bird watching here just as much as the Everglades. Seeing several birds of prey all around, but most interestingly, some smaller birds such as a vermilion flycatcher. That was my favorite. Catching a photo of it as it was taking flight is another one of my favorite national park memories. So even though this is a desert national park, the wildlife is pretty hard to beat, and compares with many parks that are more well known for their biodiversity. And while you're not guaranteed to have all these same experiences that I did, while seeing several deer, several birds, a coyote, and a black bear, in one day at the park only, I saw all of these in the same day, I think it's pretty clear that you have a good chance at enjoying a lot of wildlife if you go to this park. But what else is there to do? Well, plenty of things. Outside of day hikes and scenic drives, you can do backcountry hiking and camping, cycling, horseback riding, and the one that stood out to me the most, stargazing. Stargazing in national parks is always a great experience because they are not too close to cities typically, so you get to experience a dark sky like you may not when you're just normally at home. And for me, Big Bend had my favorite stargazing I've ever experienced. Mind you, I've had a bit of a history of going to national parks during cloudy nights, but that's just a bit unfortunate. And nonetheless, Big Bend has great stargazing. Being able to look up, even when you're a bit outside the park, knowing that you are 4 hours away from the nearest large city, just getting to look at the galaxy above you, it's a really hard to beat experience. I do adore stargazing, and Big Bend simply has some of my favorite, and I think that's simply a result of the fact that the park is, as the National Park website says, splendid isolation. Big Bend is a massive park. It's close to 1 million acres in size, has countless hiking trails and scenic areas, and it's pretty much a smaller Death Valley. I think it's even better than Death Valley though, because of just how impressive the mountains and wildlife were to me. This is all very subjective when we talk about unknown parks, which ones are the best, but when talking about which ones are the most unknown, it's hard to deny that Big Bend is one of the least known, simply because it is not easy to get to. That said, there are great parks that are not that easy to get to. Yellowstone National Park is a prime example, and while there is certainly a beauty to the fact that so many are making the trip out to Yellowstone to experience it, Big Bend being one that, even after years of people possibly hyping it up, maybe a lot of people do talk about it now, it still remains somewhat isolated. And that means when you do go to the park and try to enjoy it, you have a very good chance of doing so, especially if you search for solitude in a national park. Sometimes you have to go really off the beaten path in a park to get to the most quiet areas, but here, the whole park is off the beaten path, and there is something really wonderful about that. So in conclusion, from Big Bend's grand scenery, to its surprisingly abundant wildlife, to its countless activities, it has everything that makes the best national parks among the best right now. But an additional solitude makes it a very special experience and allows you to feel a true connection to nature you might not be able to quite as easily in some of the most popular parks. For that reason, Big Bend is one of my favorite national parks, and I think because even if a couple thousand people, even if 1 million people watch this video, I still think if some of you watching make a trip to Big Bend, it will remain a pretty quiet and isolated experience, and you'll be able to experience pristine solitude at its finest. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Comment down below your thoughts on Big Bend if you've been there before, or any questions you might have. Let me know what park I should cover next in the series. Subscribe for more national park content and check out many videos already on the channel. I'll see you next time.